Sometimes these discussions too can feel, not these discussions, but just this sort of the tech question in general, and especially with ethics, something you've written about and I already alluded to, but can kind of feel hopeless because we can kind of point out what is wrong, but it seems like no one's willing to really stop because it's a race for whatever it is, profits, power, whatever. One company can say, well, we think it's wrong, we're not going to go further for now, but that won't stop another one. So why would they stop if another one won't? Sort of a thing. And so the technologies just come at us. We're going to keep doing it because we can. It's the Ian Malcolm. We never, we thought about that we could. We never stopped to ask if we should.
Yeah.
Sort of a thing. And you've talked about this being how this works. That technology sort of does what it wants, or the people who produce the technology, and we conform our lives to that disruption. And we just sort of try to, after the fact, change that. I'm wondering, what are some examples where that has already cost us something? You mentioned one example where people did stop it in time with the cloning situation. But where have you seen that work? Where have you seen it not work? Because I think that is to me, that's a huge problem that we can't even stop to, because it's sort of, a lot of times it's almost like with corporations who were saying, at a certain period in time, they had to say, by the way, we stand for these, whatever, LGBTQ values. They don't really care. It just became advantageous culturally at that moment to do that. So do corporations really care? Do they really care about ethics? What hope is there of us changing them to care about ethics? That's a whole bunch of stuff that you could
Yeah.
Yeah. So comment on all that if you don't mind.
Yeah, comment on all of it.
Sure thing.
In order, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess to pick two things, like there's two levels I would look at. One would be the national governmental regulations. And so I would say it's important to remember that yes, some regulatory capture is a problem, but at the end of the day, like the government does exist to protect and preserve the common good. And so if we have elected leaders who've sworn to uphold the Constitution, we have a good Constitution, and we should be working with our elected leaders to make sure that they're doing their job, frankly, of not catering to special interests and not just accepting the donations from a handful of companies, but actually looking out for the well-being of all of us. And so I do think this is not a partisan issue. This is not even, it's not like a Christians versus secularists issue.
Right.
It's really, it's like in my job with the Future of Life Institute, and we work with people from all across the political spectrum. It's like, and the dividing line is, do you want a computer chip in your brain? If you do, or if you're cool with that, you're excited about that, okay, you're on Elon Musk's and Sam Altman's side. If you're not, if you think that there's something like inherently good about our human nature, whether it's because it's created by God or simply because it's good to be alive, it's good to be who we are by like a natural law, implicit understanding, then you're on the side of the human race, like all of the rest of us. And so this is an opportunity where it's not just like a niche special interest and no one else cares and people like shrug and let it happen, because it's very much affecting us. Like the tech CEOs are on record saying our children will not be able to keep up in this world if they don't accept a merge with the machines. And so if you don't want that future for your children, and I have 5 children, and I very much don't want them to have their brains uploaded to the cloud, then I am motivated to do something about it. And I think that holds for any parent who cares about their kids, regardless of like whatever things we may agree or disagree about. And so I do think there's this talk right now of President Trump considering an executive order to actually put forward regulations on like the most frontier class AI programs, because we're realizing like it's a threat to the grid. Like if a hacker gets it, like they could make the entire east coast of the country like go in a blackout for 2 weeks. That would be devastating for order in a way that nobody wants. So I think there's real ground for common sense regulations based on the common good, that no matter how much money the handful of companies throw at it, it's like they can't overwhelm the entire rest of the country. So that there's hope for that there. At the same time, I also think it's incumbent upon people of faith, like some more specific and local communities, to start thinking about, all right, what's our vision of the good, and how does that differ from our secular neighbors? And so it's like I point to the Amish like earnestly. Like I used to live in South Bend, Indiana, so we would drive a couple hours out to Amish country to buy like a half a cow at a time or a half a steer at a time to get like local Amish beef, and we actually bought a share in a cow because raw milk is illegal in Indiana. But if you have a share in a cow, then you can get raw milk from the local Amish farmer. And so we got milk that way. And so actually getting to know my neighbors and just recognizing they're just good at asking, okay, is this tool helpful for the life that I want to live? If so, great. Yeah, and so they've got power tools that are some members of the Amish have power tools that are powered by or Mennonite communities um, compressed air rather than electricity. So they can do like their famous carpentry using power tools, but they just have compressed air instead of electricity. And so like making concrete discernments like that, I think more and more families are already starting to do that, where it's like we don't want our kids to have smartphones, we don't want our kids to have tablets, and it's like grow up looking at a screen. And so churches and schools have the capacity to come together, like have the PTA meeting, have like the parish council meeting, and say, what is a good childhood that we want to offer, and then together just come up with a list of rules. And so it's like there's always that social pressure. It's like if your kid's like, oh, but all my friends have one, you don't have to cave to that. Like you can just come together, and especially it helps if the pastor or the principal convenes people. But once you say, all right, we're going to talk about this, and we've seen all the statistics. Jonathan Haidt has done a great service by pointing out, like irrefutably, like uncontroversially, how bad this has been. Social media has been for teenagers, especially teenage
Yeah.
girls.
Yeah.
We can just say as a school. One more thing. My favorite example of this is there's an all boys school that I know. I think it's in Maryland, where they go on field trips, like a week camping in the woods, and they make the parents sign a disclaimer at the beginning of the trip saying, if your son is found to have a cell phone, not that we'll take it from him, but we will take the cell phone and we will smash it with a rock. Because and we'll do it in front of all the other boys as an act of shame for how dare you distract from our like week-long encounter in nature, seeing the beauty of God's creation and bringing that digital world into it where it frankly doesn't belong.
Mm-hmm.
And like that, the fact that it's almost like shocking to think of smashing a cell phone with a rock shows just how attached we are and like and how unhealthy that attachment is to these
Yeah.
devices.
Yeah.
But we can change that. Yeah, so that school is changing it.
That reminds me of this a time when I really started thinking about my relationship with technology. I tell this story, I tell it in the book too, but where I was overseas doing a speaking trip with some colleagues, and we got done with a lot of meetings that day, and we went to the lounge in the hotel, and we decided we're all going to put our phones on one table over there, and we're going to play a game.
Yeah.
Whoever looks at their phone first has to buy the next appetizer or whatever it was we were sharing. And the number of people who were totally okay with it for about 3 minutes was staggering. It was like, oh, everyone feels liberated. And then their eyes started going over towards the table. And then I actually felt, now the phone is over there. I felt it vibrate in my pocket.
Oh yeah.
And it didn't even vibrate. No one called it. I was 12 hours time difference. No one's calling me. Everyone's asleep. But it was that phantom sensation, that oftentimes someone who loses a limb will feel. About an arm that isn't there, but it's itching or it's in pain. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my goodness, this thing is way too attached to me. And it goes right back to your first comment about, is there a functional difference between having the screen 2 inches from your eyes and having it projected into your ocular nerve or your optic nerve because it's implanted in your head? So we have to think that way through and realize that it's shocking when we say, you can't have a cell phone for a whole day, and then people lose their minds. I will say, though, one of the things that I'm starting to see as a father of Gen Z kids is that there is a movement. It's not a strong movement. I hope it gets stronger to go back to flip phones. So they're not abandoning their phones, but they're starting to use flip phones because they don't want everything else that comes. They just want to text and call their friends, like actually call someone on a thing that they
Yeah.
call a phone, as opposed to the pocket computer, which has more computing power than the first rockets that sent first computer sent the rockets to the moon. I'm actually kind of encouraged by that. It's like, hey, maybe they're getting fed up. Maybe they're having the late, but the same reaction we had to the cloning thing back in the day was like, hey, what is this doing to us? It's just we're having it a little on the late side. Well, I would say a lot on the late side, but I'm a little encouraged by that.